Hey, welcome to the channel. It's Jack, the muscle and mobility maker with Stronghold Strength and Conditioning. And today, I'm going to be showing you how to take care of those nasty hip cramps that you're getting so that you don't have to deal with them anymore. But before we get into it, make sure you take a moment and hit that subscribe button so that you don't miss out on future content like this. Every Saturday, I'm putting out videos showing you how to resolve aches and pains, prevent injuries, and overall optimize your performance inside the gym and outside of it in your daily life and routine, and it doesn't get better than that. So take advantage of it. Ready? Let's go ahead and dive into this one. All right, like I said, today we're gonna be talking about those nasty hip cramps that you're getting right around that pocket of your pants there. And this is specifically one muscle that is causing this issue in relation to how it's interacting with the other muscles around. So this is your TFL muscle, or tensor fasciae latae muscle, and it is an internal rotator of the hip, so it'll turn the hip inward. It is a hip flexor, and then it is a hip abductor, so it pulls the leg away, pulls the leg up. So with those three actions, it can get a lot of work, but it'll also end up compensating for a weak glute max and glute med. So those two muscles, it can end up taking extra load for if they're not functioning in the way that they should. And that is something we'll show you how to address today as well. So we're gonna open things up around these tissues at the hip here specifically, and then we'll also show you how to stabilize better. And after you open up that range of motion and decrease that neurological tone to that muscle at the TFL, how you can restabilize by activating your glute max and glute med to really help in this way as well. So without further ado, let's go ahead and start looking at the mobilities we're going to use to address it, and then go from there. All right, the very first thing we're going to do is address the position of the ball and socket, the hip joint itself. So we want to anchor a band at hip height here to start on a post. I'm going to step into the band and take the banded leg back. I want to internally rotate that leg as I extend it as far back as possible, and then play with internal and external rotation of the hip from this position. My glutes should be engaged, and this is an important part, especially when I come down to this half kneeling position. So as you lower in, you should still feel your glutes engaging, and you can see that I'm pushing my hip out to the side from here as well. So these are the movements that are going to actually address that TFL while we're setting the hip in a better position overall. A lot of times, if you can address the position of the hip in the joint, this will automatically start to improve the conditions of those soft tissues that are surrounding the joint as well. Next, we're going to move the band to a low anchor position, still high up in the hip crease here now. We've moved it from the glute, like a climbing harness, to up in the hip crease itself. Now, what I want to do here is, first of all, go into a bit of internal rotation while the hip is in flexion. So I have my foot planted, my shoulder blades are down and back, and I'm pulling the knee in toward my chest, giving a little bit of a flex against the resistance of the band, and then allowing it to pull me open. So I'm going to do about 10 to 15 reps here, just opening up whatever range of motion that I can. And again, you might feel it pulling directly at that TFL itself. It might be more through the hip and glute range there, and even up into the low back. You can tend to feel this one depending on where you're experiencing more tension in those tissues around your hip and pelvis. So take your time here, settle in, do some deep breathing. I'm holding that foot into position and just going through movement. I'm going to move into a half kneeling position, or a deep lunge here, and then I'm going to work internal and external rotation once again. So here I'm going to force it into an internally rotated position and allow it and press it open into that externally rotated position. Now the key is I want to see how far I can take it in both directions with my foot still staying planted. So I don't want to roll up onto an edge at all. I only want to go as far as I can where that foot is still maintaining a tripod base. That tripod is my first metatarsal behind my big toe, my fifth metatarsal behind my small toe, and my heel. Next, we're going to bring that leg across the front of the body here a little bit, and I'm going to be almost in a kneeling position, slightly angled away from the band here, so the band is pulling my hip toward the post. Now, I want to put as much weight through that knee into the hip as I'm able to, so kind of find that position where it works best, you'll feel that pressure driving the head of your femur almost into your glutes there, and that's where you're going to get a big pull, as well as we're pulling at the hip and kind of doing a little bit of a C shape, playing with where that stretch is kind of getting most into the hip around those tissues. Next, we're going to do a little bit of self-myofascial release. Here I have the band still anchored low on the post, but this time I've wrapped it around my ankle so that that's locked in. The band is pulling my leg into extension, and then I've got the foam roller across that TFL, which again is right around your pocket of your pants. Now what I want to do here is internally rotate and flex the hip a bit. So you'll see I'm kind of drawing my knee toward the hamstrings of the other leg. When I flex, I'm going to immediately relax and allow that foam roller to go deeper into those tissues of the TFL each time. So play with a little bit of contracting of the tissues. You'll feel them flex against that foam roller, and relaxing, allowing it to go deeper in each time. Of course, we can always use something like a softball as well, or just the foam roller by itself to do this self-myofascial release, and that can be effective also. But the tissues getting pulled at in that extended position with that ability to contract and relax can also be helpful with the band. So it's a little bit more of a setup there, but here I'm just using a softball and I'm getting into those tissues, turning myself onto it, and it might be pretty tender. So just have a heads up there that these tissues might be tender to that pressure. The goal is to normalize that pressure so that you know there's a ball there, you know something's pressing on those tissues, but it is not something that causes discomfort or a high level of discomfort where it's almost borderline painful. Another form of self-myofascial release we can use is mobility floss. So here I have a high hip wrap, and that's that little bit of red you can see right high up in the hip of the leg that I'm internally rotating. So I've basically trapped those tissues under that band with compression. I'm restricting some blood flow to the area, but really using the compression of the band itself. And the nice thing about the band is that it's movement specific. So if you're cramping on bench press, you can use it in that. If you're cramping in this position, 90-90, internally rotating, you could use it on that. And it's very versatile in that way as we can use it. Another component that we want to address is the abduction effect of that TFL. So here I want to open up as much passive abduction as possible by opening up my adductors. So my adductors can put more strain on my abduction, causing a problem as well. So here I'm using a loaded butterfly. I'm going to flex against those weights for 5 to 10 seconds and then relax, allowing my legs to passively get opened further into this abduction as we open the legs further and further. Now spend some time here really taking time to breathe, relax as much as possible, and open up as much range of motion as you can. Even though it might be uncomfortable at first, it might feel very stiff, just take your time getting slowly out of it when you are done. The last piece of our puzzle that we really want to make sure we do is actually stabilize this new range of motion once we've opened it up. So here I'm using an internal-external rotation glute bridge to really strengthen, again, those glute med and glute max when I'm pressing through the floor, opening that band, and really focusing on stability around the pelvis, not coming from that TFL. So we're focusing on what's happening at the glutes and the activity and activation there that we're able to really engage into in each of these exercises you're about to see. Here I'm hitting it from the side with a nice wide abduction of the legs. And if this is one that the bench gives you trouble always with those legs cramping as you open up, this might be one that's particularly helpful because of the shape of the legs here. So we want to pick movements that are similar to where we're really experiencing that cramping in the first place to strengthen our new range. And just a few more ideas for you here. This is called a shin box. So here I'm in an externally rotated position from one leg, internally rotated from the other, and I'm working on hip extension, strengthening, trying to get to that fully extended position, controlled sitting and relaxing back deep into this stretch. Again, movements like this will help strengthen that new range of motion that you just opened up and make sure that those muscles aren't struggling to hold that position. And lastly, that glute med, targeting by holding a weight off to one side, pushing your hip out through the side of your body and extending as you go into lateral flexion, and then coming back to a neutral position, focusing on locking in a solid firm pillar when you get back to neutral at the top. We want to make sure that we don't rotate in this movement at all. It is strictly along that frontal plane, and we're staying in between two panes of glass. All right, and there you have it. How to address that hip cramping that you're experiencing by going at your TFL muscle and restoring balance to those muscles around your hip overall. If you like this video, make sure you let me know by clicking that big thumbs up down below, and take a moment to share this one with a friend. Maybe they always are cramping up when they're doing bench press or other exercises where their hips are just trying to grab on them. Let's help them out by getting them the information that they need and sharing it along their way. If you're somebody who experiences aches and pains or training injuries that are keeping you from training at the level of intensity that you want to, and you are looking for direct help out of that, what I want you to do right now is drop down below in the description to fill out a coaching application and schedule a mobility blueprint call. This is our opportunity to get on a call together so that I could take you through an assessment, gather the information I would need to tailor a program specific to your needs, and then start moving you in the right direction overall. So if that sounds good, go ahead, start right now, drop it in that description, fill out that coaching application, and get your call scheduled so we can move forward and get you past those aches and injuries. Last but not least, if you have not already, make sure you take a moment and hit that subscribe button so that you don't miss out on future content like this. Every Saturday, I'm putting out videos showing you how to resolve aches and pains, prevent injuries, and overall optimize your performance inside the gym and outside of it in your daily life and routine, and it does not get better than that. Welcome to the Stronghold Army. We'll see you next week.